Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity given to me to present my research by the title "The Role of Interactive Games, Storytelling, and Technology in Enhancing Children's Interest in Learning English." My name is Indah Faradila, and my student number is 2223230017, and my class is class 60. Okay, for the next slide, please. Okay, for the next is introduction that background. Before discussing the study, I would like to explain this. English has become one of the most of important language in the modern era. It's widely used in education, technology, business, and international communication. Therefore, introducing English from an early age is considered important for children's future development. However, many children still show low interest in learning English. One of the reasons is that learning activities are often delivered through traditional methods that are repetitive and less engaging. As a result, children may feel bored and unmotivated during English lesson. For this reason, teachers need innovative teaching approach that can create enjoyable and meaningful learning experience. Interactive games, storytelling activities, and technology-based media are believed to effective tools for increasing children's interest in learning English. Next slide, please. Okay, the next is a research gap and novelty. Several previous studies have report positive effects of educational games, storytelling, and technology on language learning. However, most studies focus on only approach. For example, some studies investigate digital storytelling, while others focus on educational games or technologies. Especially research that combines interactive games, storytelling, and technology within one study is still limited, especially in Indonesia context. Therefore, the novelty of this research is that it investigates these three approaches simultaneously to explore their role in increasing children's interest in learning English. Next slide, please. Okay, for the next is research objective. Based on the identified gap, the study aims to explore teachers' perceptions regarding the use of interactive games, storytelling activities, and technology-based media, increasing children's interest in learning English. In addition, the study seeks to identify children's response toward interactive learning activities and determine the most activity strategies used by teachers to promote interest in English learning. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, for the next is literature review. The study is based on several important theories. First, interest plays a significant role in language learning because it influences learners' motivation, engagement, and achievement. Second, interactive games support learning through play and encourage active participation. Third, storytelling provides meaningful language exposure and helps children understand vocabulary and language structure in context. Finally, technology enhances learning by providing multimedia experience that make lesson more interactive and engaging. Together, this approach support child-centered learning and creative positive learning experience for young learners. Next slide, please. And for the research methodology, the study employ descriptive qualitative research design. The participant consist of 30 teachers from various educational institutions in Banten. Data were collected through a Google form questionnaire contain the question explore teachers teaching experience, their use of interactive media, children's response to interactive learning, and effective strategies for increasing interest in learning English. The collect data were analyzed using thematic analysis to identify common patterns and themes from participants' response. The next slide, please. Okay, for the finding, the first finding, the result showed that 22 teachers had more than 6 years of teaching experience. Six teachers had between 1 and 3 years experience. One teacher had 6 years of experience, and one teacher had less than 1 year of experience. This indicate that most respond possess substantial professional experience and were capable of providing valuable insight regarding English language teaching for young learners. The second finding, among the 30 respondents, 24 teachers report having experience teaching English to young children, while 6 teachers had not taught this age group. This finding suggests that most participants were familiar with the characteristic needs and learning preference of young learners. Therefore, their perspectives are highly relevant to the focus of this study. The third is finding concern that use interactive media. The results show that 11 teachers use interactive media regularly, and then 18 teachers use it occasionally, and only one teacher report never using it. The most frequently used media include flashcard, puzzles, storytelling activities, book, puppets, digital gems, educational application, videos, and animation. This finding indicate that teacher recognize that importance of creating engaging and interactive learning environment of children. Okay, next slide, please. So, the finding also revealed that children generally respond positively to interactive learning activities. Teachers describe children as more enthusiastic, motivated, active, focused, and willing to participate during lessons involving games, stories, and technology. Furthermore, all respondents agreed that interactive method can increase children's interest in learning. So, discussion based on the finding, it can be concluded that interactive learning methods create meaningful learning experience for young learners. Game encourage active participant, and then storytelling provide contextual language exposure, and then meanwhile technology enhance engagement through multimedia uh, features such as video, animation, and educational application. These findings support previous research indicate that enjoyable and interactive learning. So for the next slide, please. Okay, for the next slide is conclusion. In conclusion, the study found that interactive games, storytelling activities, and technology based learning play an important role in increasing children's interest in learning English. This approach encourages active participation, improve motivation, and create enjoyable learning experiences that are suitable for young learners. The findings also highlight the importance of adopting child centered teaching strategies that integrate various forms of interactive media. Future research is recommended to involve larger samples and examine the long-term effect of interactive approach on English language achievement. So maybe just that from me. Thank you for your attention. That is all my presentation. My presentation. I welcome any question or suggestion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Here I would like to share my research proposal. The title of my study is Quizzes Frequency and Vocabulary Retention, a correlation study on grade 11 EFL students. So in simple terms, I want to share if playing quizzes more often actually help high school students remember English words for a longer period of time. Next slide, please. Okay, moving to the background. To understand why I did this study is we have to look at the background. In the language learning, vocabulary is foundation. So if you don't know the words, you can communicate. However, the core problem for students isn't just learning the words for the first time. It is the retention, the meaning by remember the words weeks or months later. Traditionally, students use rote practice, which means cramming or memorizing long lists of words in sitting. The problem is human brains naturally forget things very quickly when we learn this way. This is where quizzes comes in. So quizzes has huge potential because it is gamified. It gives immediate feedback, it's fun, and it allows students to practice recalling words over a spaced period of time, which might be the key of better memory. Next slide, please. Even though quizzes is popular, I found a research gap or meaning things that other studies haven't answered yet. First, most studies only look at the short term. They test students immediately after playing a game, but they don't test if the students still remember the words a month later. Second, the frequency is unquantified. This is it means researchers say quizzes is good, but they don't research exactly how many times a student needs to play it actually remember the words. Finally, there is a very little data specifically on high school students to see what happens when they use quizzes on their own time to study. My research aims to fill this gap. Next slide, please. So moving to the research problem and question. The main problem here is the long-term vocabulary retention in high school students. To investigate this, I create four main research questions such as the first one, what is the profile of students? The meaning, how many sessions of quizzes do they play per week? The second is, what are their actual scores on a delayed vocabulary test? The third is there a connection or a correlation between how often they play quizzes and how high they score on the test? And the last one is, if there is a connection exactly, how strong is that relation? Next slide, please. For the literature and conceptual framework, before testing the students, I based my study on three specific theories about how the brain works. First, memory theory. Science shows that the more you force your brain to retrieve information, the stronger your memory becomes. Second, gamification. Because quizzes use points, leaderboards, and immediate feedback, it increases students' motivation, making them want to practice more. Third, spaced repetition. By studying a little bit every day is much better for your brain than studying for hours in one single day. So my concept is simple. Quizzes fun design makes students play more frequently. This frequent spaced practice forces the brain to remember, which leads to better long-term memory. Next slide. For my hypothesis and method, my hypothesis was there is a positive correlation, which means the more frequently a student use quizzes, the better their vocabulary retention will be. So this test I used a qualitative correlation design. My sample consists of 35 grade 11 students. To get my data, I used two tools. The first one, a questionnaire QUFQ, or quizzes usage frequency questionnaire, which consists of 10 likers items to measure how often they use quizzes. The second, a vocabulary retention test, PRT, consisting of 30 multiple choice questions. Crucially, I gave them this test 3 weeks after they learned the words to test their memory. Then I put the numbers into a statistical software to find the person-error correlation. Next slide. Move to the findings and discussion. First, the average frequency score was 37.45, which means the students use quizzes often. Second, their average score on the vocabulary test 3 weeks later was 22.8 out of 30, which is a good score. After checking the data, was normal, I did the correlation test. The result was an R value of 0.764. In statistics, this is a strong positive and significant relation. Furthermore, the R squared value was 0.583. This is a huge finding. It means that 58.3% of 0.3% of students' ability to remember vocabulary is directly explained by how often they played quizzes. So, in short, the numbers prove that frequent gamified practice on quizzes strongly predict that students remember the words weeks later. Next slide. Okay, to conclude, my hypothesis was correct. High quizzes frequency leads to better long-term vocabulary retention. So based on this finding, I have a few recommendations. The first one for teacher, don't just using quizzes as a one-time task. Use it as a regular practice tool. Give students quizzes spaced out over time. For example, 1 day after learning, then 3 days later, then a week later. Second one is for students. Take control of your own learning. Use the quizzes practice of flashcard modes regularly on your phone to help you remember your lesson. The third one is for institution and future researcher. Schools should confidently use more gamified tools in their curriculum. Also, since quizzes explains 58% of the success, future researchers should look at them like students' motivation or how difficult the words are. Okay, that's bring me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm opening to any question, feedback, or recommendation on Q&A session later. Good afternoon.
Okay, so good afternoon, respected lecturers and friends. My name is Schatzy Rahmah, and student number is 22232300040. And today I will present my research proposal entitled Student Perception of Using Memes as a Medium for Learning English Vocabulary. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the background, vocabulary plays a very important role in language learning because it is the foundation for communication. So without sufficient vocabulary, Students may have difficulty understanding what they read or hear, and they may also struggle to express their ideas when speaking or writing. And however, in reality, many students still consider vocabulary learning difficult and boring. And then this is often because vocabulary is taught through traditional methods such as memorizing words and dictionaries or textbook exercise. These methods sometimes make students lose interest and motivation. On the other hand, today's students are highly connected to digital media. They spend a lot of time on social media platforms where they encounter various forms of online content. One type of content that is especially popular among young people is memes. Memes are short pieces of content that combine image and text to create humor or relatable message. Because memes are entertaining and easy to understand, they have the potential to be used as educational tools. And students may remember vocabulary more easily when words are presented through funny and meaningful context rather than through memorization alone. And however, despite their popularity, memes are still rarely used in English vocabulary learning, and there is limited research exploring how students perceive their use in learning. And therefore, I'm interested in investigating student uh, perception of using memes as a medium for learning English vocabulary. Next slide, please. And then this study is based on a research gap found in previous studies. Many previous studies have investigated the use of digital media in language learning. Most of them focus on learning video, mobile learning application, and social media platform. And these studies generally show positive effect on student engagement and learning outcomes. And however, only a few studies especially discuss memes as a medium for vocabulary learning. And in addition, there is still limited research that explores student perception regarding how memes help them understand vocabulary, remember new words, and increase learning motivation. Because of this gap, this research offers a different perspective by focusing specifically on student perception towards the use of memes in learning English vocabulary. And this focus becomes the novelty of my study. Next. And based on the background and research gap, this study aims to answer three research questions. So the first question is, how do students perceive the use of meme in learning English vocabulary? And the second question is, do memes help students understand and remember vocabulary? And the third is, how do memes influence student motivation in learning vocabulary? And these questions are expected to provide a comprehensive understanding of student experiences and opinions regarding the use of memes in English learning. Next slide, please. Okay, so in line with the research question, this study has one general objective and several specific objectives. The general objective is to investigate student perception of using memes as a medium for learning English vocabulary. Meanwhile, the specific objectives are first, to identify student perception toward the use of memes. The second is to examine whether memes help students understand and remember vocabulary. And the third is to analyze the influence of memes on student motivation. And by achieving this objective, this study helps to provide insight into the educational potential of memes. Next slide, please. Okay, so this study is expected to provide both theoretical and practical significance. From a theoretical perspective, this study contributes to the field of English language teaching, especially studies related to digital learning media and vocabulary acquisition. The findings might enrich the discussion about innovative approach to vocabulary learning in today's digital era. From a practical perspective, this study might benefit teachers by providing an alternative teaching medium that is more engaging and relevant to student interests. And for students, memes may offer a more enjoyable and motivating way to learn vocabulary. And finally, for future researchers, this study can serve a reference for conducting further research on digital learning media, memes, and language learning. Next slide, please. Okay, so this study is supported by three main concepts. The first concept is vocabulary learning. Vocabulary is considered a fundamental aspect of language learning because it supports all language skills, including listening, speaking, reading, and writing. In addition, vocabulary learning is more effective when words are learned in meaningful context rather than in isolation. And the second concept is digital media in language learning. Digital media can increase student engagement and motivation because it combines different forms of information such as text, image, audio, and video. And the third concept is memes as learning media. So memes combine visual and textual elements, making information easier to understand and remember. Because memes are often humorous and relatable, they may attract student attention and create a more positive learning experience. So this concept form the theoretical foundation of this study. Next slide, please. Okay, so the participant of this study will be EFL student or student who learn English as a foreign language. Okay, so to select participant, I will use purposive sampling. Purposive sampling is chosen because I need participant who meet specific criteria related to the study. And then the participant should be familiar with social media and have experience encountering memes in their daily life. And these criteria are important because students who are familiar with memes will be able to provide richer and more relevant information about their perception. Next slide, please. Okay, so this study used qualitative research approach. Qualitative research is appropriate because the focus of this study is on student perception, opinions, and experiences. More specifically, this study used a descriptive qualitative design, and the purpose of this design is to describe and interpret student views regarding the use of memes in vocabulary learning. And rather than measuring effectiveness through numerical scores, this study seeks to understand how students experience and perceive the use of memes as a learning media. Next slide, please. Okay, so to collect the data, I will use two techniques. The first technique is questionnaire using a Likert scale. So the questionnaire will help gather information from a larger number of participants regarding their perception of memes in vocabulary learning. And the second technique is a semi-structured interview. The interview will allow participants to explain their opinions, experiences, and feelings in greater detail. The combination of questionnaire and interview is expected to provide more comprehensive and reliable data. Next slide, please. The instrument used in this study are questionnaire and interview guides. The questionnaire contains statements related to student perception. For example, memes help understand vocabulary more easily. Learning vocabulary through memes is interesting, and memes increase my motivation to learn English. Meanwhile, the interview consists of open-ended questions. For example, like, what do you think about using memes in vocabulary learning? Do memes help you remember new words? And should teachers use memes in English classes? Why or why not? So these questions are designed to explore student perspective more deeply. Next slide, please. And for the collected data will be analyzed using the interactive model proposed by Mills and Haberman. The first stage is data reduction, and the second stage is data display. And then the final stage is conclusion drawing and verification. Next slide, please. Okay, so in conclusion, this study aims to investigate student perception of using memes as a medium for learning English vocabulary. By exploring student opinion, experiences, and motivation, this study hopes to provide useful insight into the potential of memes as an innovative learning medium. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, dear respected lecturer and my friends. My name is Annisa and here I am. I want to present my research proposal. The title is The Relationship Between Social and School Environments and the English Learning Motivation of Adolescents in Junior High School Students. Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, Sultan Ageng Tirtayasa University. So here are the background of my study. Why this study is matters. So first is English is important for global language, especially for docents who needs to learn English in their age. And then the second is many Indonesian adolescents still have low motivation in learning English. The third is motivation is a key factor in successful language learning. And fourth is adolescents are highly influenced by their surroundings. And last is social and school environments may shape students' motivation. So my research focus is how do social and school environments influence English learning motivation? Okay, these are my research questions. The first one is social influences. How do family, peers, and digital exposure influence students' motivation? The second is about school environment. How does the school environment affect English learning motivation? And the third is interaction of environments. How do school and social and school environments interact in shaping motivation? And the last is about literature support. How do previous studies support these relationships? Okay, so these are my objectives of my studies. So I'm analyzing the role of social environment in English learning motivation for adolescents. The second is explain school environment and also influence. Explain the influence of school environments factors. And the third is investigate environmental interaction. So I'm investigate the interaction between social and school environments. And the last is synthesize theories and research. So I'm synthesizing theories and previous research findings that related to motivation. Okay, so these are my theoretical foundation. So the first one is social environment. In social environment, we have family support, peers influence, and community, and also digital exposure. Okay, so these are the theoretical pillars. And the second is I have school environment. In school environment, we have teacher quality classroom climate and learning resources. And the third is learning motivation. So in learning motivation, I am integrative motivations, instrumental, also instrumental motivation, and L2 motivation self-system. And three core pillars. This study is grounded in three interconnected theoretical domains that together explain how motivation is shaped in adolescent English learner. So, in social environment, there are family support, peer influence, community and digital exposures that we need. And in school environment, we need teacher quality, classroom climate, and learning resources. And in learning motivation, we need instrumentation and L to motivation self-system. All right. We go to the conceptual framework. And conceptual framework, there are framework overview. The conceptual framework illustrates how two sets of independent variables, so they are the social environment and the school environment too, converge to shape the dependent variable, English learning motivation. So these are the framework overview. The first one is independent variable. In social environment, we have family, we have peers or friends, peers group, and then we have social media for the engagement, and we have community too. And go to the next independent variable, they are school environment. In school environment, obviously we need teachers, and then we need classroom climate, and then we need school support, and then we need learning facilities. And then go to the next dependent variable. English learning motivation is really important, so we need interest of that adolescents, and we need their participation, and also we need their persistence and learning engagement. Okay, these are my research methodology. So my research design, I'm using qualitative descriptive with a case study approach. And then my research site is in junior high school in Serang. And the participants is 6. And sampling technique, I'm using purposive sampling. Okay. Okay, these are my data collection. So my data collection techniques I have 3 data collection techniques. So the first is semi-structured interviews. I'm using semi-structured interviews by exploring students' motivation, social influences, and school influences through guided conversation. And the second is observation. I'm using observation by documenting teacher and student interaction in class, also a classroom atmosphere and their student engagement. And the last is documentation. And in documentation, I'm using it by reviewing lesson plans and learning materials, also school policies. Okay, these are my data analysis and trustworthiness. So the data analysis, I'm using in thematic analysis according to Brown and Clark. The first is familiarization, and the second is coding, and the third is generating themes, and the fourth is reviewing themes, and the fifth is defining themes, and the sixth is reporting. So the trustworthiness, I have 3 trustworthiness. The first is triangulation. By triangulation, I'm using cross-verifying data from multiple sources. The second is member checking. I'm using validating findings with my participants. And the last is thick description I'm using providing rich consideration, also need informed consent, anonymity, confidentiality, and voluntary participants. So expected findings and significance. The expected findings, there are social environment influences student motivation and school environments contributes significantly to learning engagement, and last is both environments interact in shaping motivation. So the significance of my study is theoretical. The first is theoretical, enriches literature on EFL motivation. For teachers is better classroom strategies. For school is we need supportive learning climate. And for parents, we need stronger involvement. And for policymakers, we need improved educational support. Okay, these are from me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm opening for the questions or feedback.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sasin Difa Pebydwina. Today, I would like to present my research entitled Exploring Grade 11 Students' Experiences of Using TikTok Contents in Developing English Pronunciation Awareness. The study explores how students use TikTok to learn and become more aware of English pronunciation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So in the background is media has become is one of the most popular platform among teenagers. TikTok provide pronunciation related content through short video. Okay, and pronunciation awareness is important for speaking and listening skill. Limits. Limit studies focus on how high school students use TikTok for pronunciation learning. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this study has objective first to explore students' exposure to pronunciation related contents on TikTok. And the second is to identify pronunciation features noticed by students. And the next is to understand student perception of TikTok as a learning tools. And the last is to find out the challenges students face when learning pronunciation to TikTok. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the next slide is literature review. Pronunciation awareness means the ability to notice pronunciation feature when listening to spoken language. According to this language feature, before they can learn them, there are two main pronunciation features. The first is segmental features such as vowels and consonants. And the second is supramental feature is such as stress and intonation. And TikTok may help pronunciation learning because it provides audio, caption, and visual example. Next slide, please. Nah, here I use a qualitative case study design. The participants were 6th grade 11 students from SMIN School Pandeglang. They come from different class and had different level of English proficiency. The data were collected through semi-structured interview. And after that, the interview data were analyzed using thematic analysis. Next slide, please. Okay. The participants is there were 6 participants in the study. There the participant represent 6 different grades of 11 class. Their English level range from basic to advanced. This variation helped me gain different perspective and experience. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the next is the findings show that students had different level of exposure to English pronunciation contents. The P1, P4, P5, and P6 were frequently exposed to English videos because they watch English content regularly. And P3 had moderate exposure because he preferred other media such as YouTube, podcasts, and movies. Meanwhile, the P2 had low exposure because he mostly watched entertainment videos in Indonesian. The finding also saw that TikTok's algorithm affects the type of content students receive. Okay, next slide. And then students notice many pronunciation features through TikTok. For segmental feature, they notice silent letters, difficult sounds, vowels, and spelling pronunciation differences. For example, a student learned that the letter B in the word depth is silent. They also they also learn the pronunciation of words such as salmon, island, and chaos. This example helps students become more aware of English pronunciation. Okay, next slide, please. Now, for the suprasegmental feature, These include word stress, intonation, and connected speech. However, not all students notice this show stronger awareness because they had more exposure and higher English proficiency. Meanwhile, P1 and P4 could notice this feature, but they found them difficult to explain. Next slide, please. Now, for the student perception is most participants view TikTok positively. They believe TikTok is easy to access, interesting, and helpful for learning pronunciation. Students like the short video format because it is simple. And then they also feel that TikTok provides more pronunciation example than they usually receive in the class. However, most participants agree that TikTok should only be used as a supplementary learning tool. And the next slide, please. Challenge the participants also mentioned several challenges. Um, okay, next, sorry. For the challenge is there are distraction from entertainment content and short video duration, first native speaker speech, different access, and unreliable context. Um, sorry, the challenge. Can you move to another slide? Especially is challenge. Okay. Next is this challenge sometimes reduce the effective of learning. And the student could imitate pronunciation, but they did not know whether their pronunciation was correct. Okay, next slide, please. Now, for the discussion, is the findings show that TikTok can provide a valuable pronunciation exposure. Students can listen to native speakers and observe how words are pronounced in real situations. TikTok is especially useful for learning individual sounds and silent letters. However, more complex features such as rhythm, intonation, connected speech often require a longer explanation and practice. Therefore, TikTok is helpful. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the uh, conclusion is TikTok can help students develop pronunciation awareness. Students also notice both segmental and suprasegmental pronunciation feature, and most participants consider TikTok a useful and enjoyable learning tools. However, TikTok cannot replace teacher or classroom interaction. The effective of TikTok depends on how students use it and how actively they with the content. Okay. Uh, I think the recommendation is for student is use TikTok actively, verify pronunciation using reliable source, and for the teacher is integrate section TikTok content into the lesson and provide feedback and guide practice. And for future researchers, explore loud sample, investigate pronunciation improvement, not only awareness. So thank you for your attention. That is all for my presentation. I hope this study can provide useful insight into the use of English TikTok for English pronunciation learning. Okay, thank you.